All right, Steve. It's been a while, all right? Kind of hard to get to you. You're a tough man to have schedule. Your schedule's barely open.
Yeah.
uh,
Unfortunately, I don't think I'm a famous person, but it's limited time sometimes. As much as I try to do it, I got to carve out minutes,
yeah,
not hours.
yeah. Hey, full respect to that. Can you introduce yourself to the podcast, like who you are?
Yeah, my name's Steve Rozenberg. I am, gosh, I don't even know how to explain. Um, Currently, I'm a international airline pilot. I fly Boeing 777 aircraft. I've also been involved in real estate investing, owning businesses. I owned one of the fastest growing property management companies in Texas for a while, sold that to a venture capital company. Ended up doing a bunch of stuff with Bigger Pockets and became friends with all those crazy yahoos over there. Ended up doing a lot of investing with them, good friends of mine. And since then, I've been coaching real estate investors and doing masterminds with high level business people to get their businesses to the next level, speaking on some very large stages with some very large people, large names around the United States as well as Australia. How's that?
That's good. That's good. I love it. So usually the people that listen to this, they're from like 18 to 26 years old.
Cool.
So can you speak about your past, right? So what have you always had that business mindset, like from like after high school at all?
No, not at all, man. Not at all. I thought growing up, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, East LA, actually.
Okay.
And the only thing I ever wanted to do after playing college football was to be an airline pilot. That was it. I didn't want to do anything else. Didn't know of anything else. I studied. I went to college. I got a job flying up and down the west coast of California. And I got hired at a major airline at 25 years old. And I was the second youngest person hired at the airline. Went out to Guam, was flying all over the South Pacific and Asia, Australia, all that. And had the best job in the world. It was the most safe and it was the most secure job. And that's all I ever wanted to do. Unfortunately, there was a day in history that happened that ripped that away from me. And that day was 9/11.
Yeah.
And when 9/11 hit, I got a furlough notice 2 days after that.
Ooh.
And it made me realize that the safe and the secure job that I thought I had was not safe. And it was definitely not secure.
Yeah.
So I started figuring out what I would do when I grew up and figured out what other models I would follow. And real estate investing seemed to be something that I liked. I didn't know anything about it. So this is before the days of YouTube, just to give you an idea how old I am. But I went to the library. I got a library card and I started reading a book a week on real estate. Everything I could find, I read. And I did that for quite a while. Started investing, started, flipping properties, wholesaling, double escrow closes, all that. I got lied to, I got ripped off, I got stolen from, I got my ass kicked. I lost a shitload of money. However, I didn't have a choice. So I had to keep getting back up every time I got beat up. And every single time I knew what not to do or one less thing that I would be ripped off for or lied to or whatever. And eventually the wins started to outweigh the losses and I started getting better at it and I started getting better. And next thing you know, my wins in the win column started stacking up. And that was kind of my evolution into being a real estate investor. It was from a lot of mistakes and it was from a lot of very, very sleepless nights of not knowing what to do, not being sure. And that's kind of the path. Now, the whole time I did stay as an airline pilot. I came within 30 numbers of losing my job. Luckily, I did not lose my job, but it made me realize how delicate you are as an employee and what you need to do to fix that. And what I needed to do is I needed to not be dependent upon a job. And so I really, it's kind of like when you touch a hot stove or you get your ass kicked by someone that you probably shouldn't have mouthed off to. That's what happened to me. So I'm very conscientious that a job, I still am an airline pilot. I fly, if you follow me on social media, I fly all over the world. I leave for Amsterdam tomorrow.
Nice.
But I also know it's a job. And I know it at any moment I can, with a swipe of a pen, I can be downsized, outsourced, merged, whatever. But because of the things that I've done in real estate and speaking and coaching and all the other stuff, I'm not dependent on that. I do it because I like it, not because I have to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what caused you to basically have that shift of mindset towards real estate? Because I know because you could have chose like, oh, let me just do stocks, or let me start up a business, or why real estate? When did that hit in your late 20s?
Yeah, honestly, as a pilot, good, bad, or indifferent, we have a lot of free time on our hands, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we do stupid shit and we do things we shouldn't do because we have so much free time. An alpaca farm or vending machines or, whatever. The challenge with a lot of these things and I was looking, I mean, I literally, the challenge when you have a job that's so specialized, like being an airline pilot, unless I'm flying a plane, I'm pretty useless to the rest of the world. Like I didn't have any other skill sets. And so it's very humbling, I'll be honest, when you realize that you really can't use a flying skill anywhere except in an airplane.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have something. I never wanted to stop flying. So I wanted to have something that I could do flying, but also could be quote unquote passive, which if you know anything about real estate, it is not passive if you're, but the word passive is what they use. And so I looked at like opening a gym and doing this and doing that. I used to do bodyguarding when I was younger and other shit. And I was like, okay, what could I do? The problem is all those required me to be present. None of them worked without me being there. So by definition, when you want to create a quote unquote business, the definition of a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that runs without you. Well, all of these things that I was looking at, restaurants, none of these were businesses because I had to be there to run them or to run the team, the employees. So that was just a job. I already had a job as a pilot. And as a pilot, financially, you do pretty well. I was looking for a business, which is basically a system that would run without me. Well, when you look at real estate, that's really what real estate is if you do it correctly. Now, I went down that path and I did not do it correctly till I learned the right way. But, the model of real estate is systemization, automation, and procedures, and it can run without you. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but I wanted something that was systemizable and scalable. And that's what real estate is.
Yeah, that answers my question. So with you being a pilot, did you always, what made you want to be a pilot? That's like, whenever you ask someone like, hey, I want to be a pilot, it never happens. Like, what made you like, hey, I'm certain that I wanted to be a pilot? Do you have someone in your family that was a pilot?
I don't have anyone that I know that was a pilot. I just remember as a little kid growing up, and I tell this story because I knew nothing about flying. I didn't know what pilots made. I didn't even know like, how does this even work? Right. I was like little kid and I'd look up at the sky and I was living in Los Angeles. So after Los Angeles is the Pacific Ocean and then it goes off to wherever in the world. And I remember looking at these planes heading out that way and I'm thinking, where do they go? Like, how do they do this? And I just remember thinking like, man, that would be cool to do that as a job. And so that was kind of like, okay. And I'm the kind of person that once I set my mind, I do not deviate. And at, 13, 14 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a pilot. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, I have no idea, but I'm going to be a fucking pilot. Like, I just think it's cool. And I didn't know anything about being a pilot. I didn't know how airlines worked and you got to work your way up and all that other stuff. I just knew that's a cool fucking job and they travel the world and that's what I want to do. And that's that. Honestly, I wish it was more fantastic.
No, that's good. That's good, Steve.
Yeah.
And since like, when you were, I guess like, what was the biggest, do you think like college is worth it now? I know a lot of people, they have different perspective on college. And I guess a lot of like teens or when they're 18, they've always been raised to like basically once they're done with high school, they go to college and they get a big amount of debt. You may have a different opinion on it because of course you use your degree in a way to get your pilots, right? You went to college to become a pilot, right?
I did. I will tell you that, and I've got a son, he's 18 years old. So he's going through this right now. So I can tell you from his experience. I'm not a big fan of college in the sense that college is like a business, right? They're not necessarily here to make you a better, I mean, a college basically makes you an employee. Their job is to make you become an employee. If they were trying to make you become an entrepreneur, Well, then they would teach you entrepreneurial skills, but they don't. They teach you, I mean, most people graduate business school and they can't even balance a checkbook. That's got to tell you, because the world, look, the bottom line is the world needs employees. If everyone's a king and there's no jesters and people working for the king, well, then the system doesn't work, right? You need to be an employee. And this is I'm not saying this is maybe the college or the societal issue is, you need to be an employee because you need to get a house, right? Your bills are here. Then you need to get a car. Your bills are here. Then when you get a raise, you got to get a bigger house and a nicer car because you're in debt now. And now that you're in debt, you have to keep working. When you're working, you're creating goods and services. So that's keeping the economy going. So society would implode if everybody was quote unquote an entrepreneur. Because somebody has to do the work, right? Unfortunately, the world needs ditch diggers. That's just fucking how it is, right? I don't care what people say. The problem is people who think, they look on social media and they see all this bullshit of all these people. And the reality is an overnight success is 15 years in the making. Every single one of those people that are successful, they have failed on multiple levels, myself included. And I don't even put myself in the same category as people that I know, but I have failed on very, very high levels, and I fail constantly. I still fail, and I'm okay with that. The challenge is people, and I'm not saying young people, old people, I don't give a shit what they're black, blue, yellow, purple. I don't care. People don't show up. They don't show up and they don't put in the work. And, I am a big believer that every single day you have a decision that you make. That decision is, I'm going to be better than yesterday, or I'm going to be worse. And the reality is, if you don't make a decision, you made a decision. It was to be worse. And what happens is people see the glamour. They see me traveling around the world. They see me speaking on stages, with Brad Lee and Ed Milet and these other guys. And they're like, oh, I want to be a speaker like Steve. I want to build a business and sell it for multi-million dollars. I want to do this. Yeah, but you didn't see the fucking 20 years that it took to get me here. The struggles, the failures, the sleepless nights, the self-doubt. So I'm going to circle back to your question. I think what college does is college teaches you to show up and to be responsible and accountable. So I think that, what you learn in college, I mean, how many people go to college and they're the head coffee guy at Starbucks? Nothing wrong with working at Starbucks. That's fucking totally cool. But it just cost you $200,000 to go to Texas A&M to work at Starbucks. That's because you're not being accountable and you're not showing up. And so I think that college is great if you use it for the tool that it is, which is show up, be responsible, put on your big boy, big girl panties, get your shit done, use it as a stepping stool to get you to where you want to go. That's where I think college comes into play. And that's where I think you can be successful if you use it as a tool. If you use it as some place to go hang out with your friends and bitch and moan and whatever the fuck your deal is. Sorry, I cuss a lot.
No, you're good.
If that's your deal, well, then you're wasting the opportunity. Then I would say don't do it. I know many people who go to college and they're very successful as a result because they're focused, because they go there with intention. Many people that go to college, it's like, what are you going to college for? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. I'm like, bullshit. You're going to fucking figure it out. You're going to figure it out before you go. Right. My son. So I'll tell you, my son, he's 18 years old. He's not going to college. He's going to trade school. Yeah. He wants to learn to use CNC machines, and he's going to a NASCAR school in North Carolina. And I'm like, that's cool, man. Like, do your thing. Now, that kid also bought his first rental property at 14 years old. So he has passive income coming in from his rental properties. So that is, he's got a system, he's got a business. So, and again, I'm sure because me helping him and everything, but he bought it with his own money. He has to figure his shit out. I mean, that's his rental property. My point is that college is good if you use it for the tool that it can be. But even after college, like myself, every day you've got to make that decision. I get up at 4 a.m. every day to go to the gym. Do you think I like getting up at 4 a.m.? Fuck, I hate it. I do not like it at all. It has nothing to do with what I like. It's what I have to do. That's just, I don't have a choice. People seem to think like in world, and again, I'm not talking about young people or old people, fat, skinny, I don't care. Everybody seems to think that you have a choice. who said you had a choice in any of this? You do it because that's the right thing to do. And you do it because you got to get shit done. And I think if more people did that, I think that more people would be successful and not social media famous, social media rich, all the other bullshit. That's my take on that one.
I like that. I like that. You have an obligation to fulfill.
You have an obligation.
And can you name one of your biggest failures? Like you said, you had a bunch of failures, right? Is there any failure that hits you strong that you're like, I can never forget this? It's like a scar on me.
Oh yeah. So when me and my business partner at the time, we had some real estate assets, and we sold an apartment complex, did pretty well financially by selling it. This is back in 2006, just to give you some time reference.
Yeah.
I'm sure some kids were born by then, I'm guessing. But this is 2006. And this is just before the real estate crash that happened. And my business partner says, we should start just buying some single family houses. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, man, we can get these low income, high cash flow properties. We can pick them up for 50, 60 grand. They make $900 a month. We'll be balling. I'm like, fucking, why just get one? Let's get as many as we can. Excuse me. So in about a year, we buy about 20 of these properties, year and a half. And then we realized why people don't own these properties, because all of a sudden we started getting phone calls. This isn't working. That's not working. Why do I have to pay my rent? This, that, people bitching, complaining, moaning. We're going, holy fuck, what did we do? So now we have these 20 something problem properties. So what do? Well, we did what any other geniuses like us would do. We bought another 15 because we thought, well, we're halfway through the mountain. We might as well just push this thing all the way through. Imagine having a bonfire and just throwing a gallon of gasoline on the fire and it exploding in your face. And you're kind of shocked why it happened. You're like, I can't believe that got worse. It got so bad that my wife actually told me, if you buy another one, it better be nice, because you will be living in that house because you suck at buying homes and you need to stop. And that was a moment, and I wrote a book. I'm a published author. I wrote a book on it. That was the moment that I realized I was like an addict. I kept trying to fix the problem, and I was so emotionally tied, and I was not going to be proven wrong, that I was going to scorch earth in everything around me to prove that I could do it. And I was just making everything worse.
Yeah, that's so how'd you recover from that? I know you wrote your book, Building an Empire, Following Our Way to Millions, right?
Yeah. So what we ended up doing was my business partner and I sat down and we're like, okay, we need to stop this. First of all, we need to stop buying shitty houses, number one.
Yeah.
But we wanted to outsource them to a property management company. Unfortunately, because we own such shitty properties, nobody wanted them. So no management company would even take what we owned. So our problem went from bad to worse, that now we had to fix our own problem. We had to be responsible. We had to be accountable. So we sat down for about 6 months and we plumbed the infrastructure of how we would want our rental properties to run if we were our clients. After we did that, after about 6 months, our properties stopped losing money. They stabilized. And then we had other people actually approach us and they said, hey, could you manage our properties? You guys seem like you fixed your shit. And we're like, fuck no, we don't want your problems. We barely fixed our own. The last thing we want to do is take on your problems. But then we realized, you know what? Maybe there's something here. I mean, we knew, look, we just owned an apartment complex. We knew what to do. We just were not doing it because we weren't running it like a business because we were too emotional. So we thought, well, you know what? If these are other people's properties, we can just run it like a business and we can do this correctly. So we went to a business coach. First thing we did. And we said, look, this is what we did to get us here. This is how we fixed it. And this is what we have people asking us. Is there a business here? Is there something here? So the guy looks at it. He says, well, there's definitely opportunity. You can scale this. And there is a market to manage properties. So by definition, yes, you guys have a potential business. However, you two are not the smartest people on earth, and you will be bankrupt in 6 months because you have no clue of what you're doing to run a business. So we hire this guy on the spot. Now we have a business coach and we don't even know what the hell we're doing, but we have a business coach now that we can't afford to hire him, but we can't afford not to hire him, if that makes sense. So we hire this guy We stayed with this guy for 7 years. Every single week, we got coached by this guy, and we had multiple coaches during this time frame. We scaled to 1,000 properties. We were operating out of 3 states with virtual assistants and 60% of our company in Mexico. We sold that company well into the millions of dollars to a venture capital backed company because of us running it like a business. So that failure of those sleepless nights of buying bad properties was actually the biggest success I've ever had. A multi-million-dollar success, to be honest.
Wow, that is really amazing. Since like you turned basically a failure, you saw the opportunities, and you brought the people that actually know what they're doing involved. Like, right, so you brought the who's in, and yeah, it's like a lot of people, they will actually quit when they hear like, oh, you guys are not the smartest people, right? A lot of people, they put their ego into their like, oh, you don't think I can handle it, and then they get bankrupt, like you said, in 6 months. So do you have any advice on like becoming more, I guess, like professional when it comes to business, or like having that business mindset in a way?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is there's a term, and if people have a pen and paper, I would suggest you write that term down. And this was taught to me by one of my mentors, Brad Sugars, and he may have stolen it from someone else. I don't know. He was very influential in my life. And the term is called B. So BE times the time sign do. So it's B times do, and then equals have. B times do equals have. Okay. So people will say, just like you said, Steve, what do people have to do to have a multi-million-dollar business, to be successful? What do they have to do? Like, if, look, as young, strapping young entrepreneurs, like people watching this, they will probably bust their ass and they will do whatever it takes. If it means 7 days a week, 25 hours a day, if it's possible, they will probably do it. What they're missing is the first part of that equation. B, you have to become successful first. You have to become that successful person. It's not doing. Doing, yes. The challenge is many people believe, and I was one of these people, that you've got to be the hardest worker in the room. You want to be successful, you got to be the hardest worker. Well, there's really no correlation, if you look at successful people, to hard work and success. You could bust your ass 24 hours a day nonstop, and there is no guarantee you'll be successful. As a matter of fact, you and probably people watching probably know someone in their life that has worked hard their whole life and they just fall short. They just, my parents were not very successful, but they were very, very hardworking, right? They didn't get to where they wanted to go. If it were the case of the hardest worker in the room being successful, construction workers and day laborers would be the wealthiest people on the planet, but they're not. And we know they're not, but we tell ourselves a lie of saying, if I just work hard, if I just put in a hard day's work, right? That's what we hear. That is the employee mentality. Yeah. That is not the successful. You got to say, who do I need to become to be successful? So I would focus more on becoming that successful person, changing your mindset. We are programmed from childhood to be employees, right? That's what we're taught, right? And there's nothing wrong with employees. As an airline pilot, I am an employee. I'm kind of a hybrid because I built several businesses, but I also understand when I go to work flying an airplane, I'm an employee.
And you love what you do as well.
And I love what I do. I fly around the world 2-3 times a month. I'm in Amsterdam, Hawaii, wherever. So I love that part of it, but I also know I'm an employee. When I step on that plane in my uniform, I'm an employee. So what people need to understand is that if they want to be successful, spend more time on the becoming successful part up here. It's between your ears. That's all it is. It's not your hands. You've got to be that person to go, okay, what is the best use of my time? What should I be doing? And more importantly, it's a deselection process to be successful. It's not what you should do. The better question you should be asking is what should I not be doing to be successful? Because if you look at people that are successful, right? And I know some pretty high-end influential people that are multimillionaires. They don't get 25 hours. They don't have a third arm. So you got to ask yourself, what is it that they're doing that people that are not successful doing? And the answer is they say no more than they say yes, which sounds weird.
Yeah.
But that's actually the reality.
Wow. So in that whole equation, you're basically building yourself up, and then can you repeat that whole equation one more time, Steve? Because that was I really did like that equation.
Yeah.
So
it's B, so it's BE.
B.
And then time, so it's multiplication. Do, so B times do equals, and then have.
I like
you have
that.
to have both. You have to have the B and you have to have the have. I mean, you have to have the B and you have to have the do. You got to have both of them. But most people focus, if you ever ask, so if you talk to people, they'll say, what can I do? What do I have to do? But nobody ever talks about who they have to become. So, look, I know people that have made millions of dollars, but they're still poor because they're mentally poor and they lose it. And now they have they work from a mindset of scarcity. They make all this money. Now they're worse off because they're scared they're going to lose it. So now they're doing everything they can to protect that money. It's the wrong mindset.
Yeah.
Become that successful person first. As one of the challenges that we all have as entrepreneurs is that we're so focused on what we have to do. Like you talk to people, they go, what do I do? What do I do? It's like, wait a second. First, why don't we map out mentally who you have to become? So when I coach people and I work with people and I work with, I work with, teenagers, I work with young people. I tell them, like, if you could get your mind right and you could figure out who you have to be, you could fucking knock down walls when you walk in a room, because everyone knows, like when you see someone successful and they walk in a room, you can just feel it, right? You can feel that energy coming off them. You're like, okay, I don't know what this guy does or she does, but they got their shit together and they know what they're doing, right? I get a lot of people, and look, I don't put myself in this hyper successful world like people that I know, but I get people that talk to me. They're like, man, I feel the energy off of you. I'm like, that's because I am that person. I've become that person. And that doesn't just happen. Like there's no fairy that sprinkles dust on me at nighttime and I become this person. Like this is, again, they don't teach this in airline pilot school. I had to learn to become this person over time. And so I think going back to one of your original questions, one of the things that people need to do to be successful, they got to put in the work, but they got to make sure that they show up and that they're responsible and accountable. There's a term that I learned. And again, this is, I'll credit Brad Sugars as well. It was above the line and below the line. Okay. And we actually use this in my business for a long time. So you have two types of people. You have people that are above the line, and then you have people that are below the line. Okay. Above the line is ownership, accountability, and responsibility. OAR. Okay. Below the line is blame, excuses, and denial. BED. So above the line, ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Below the line, blame, excuse, denial. So let's just say, for example, I'm supposed to have this podcast show. And let's say I'm 10 minutes late because I'm stuck in traffic. And I get here and I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. I was stuck in traffic. I really apologize. I nothing I can do about it. And you're like, hey, no problem. That's below the line because I'm using blame and excuse. What I should say is, you know what, man, that's on me. I should have been on time. I didn't leave early enough. I own it. I'm taking responsibility for that. Right. So many people, they lose a job. Oh, the owner's a dick or whatever the case, but whatever their reason is. It's like, no, you didn't show up. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. Right. Or you didn't vet that job correctly. Take ownership. And so people that are, if now that I've said this, you may be more cognizant of this, is start looking at people that are successful. And again, the wins don't define the person. It's when they lose. When they lose, look and see what kind of person they are. Do they go, you know what, man, that's on me. I fucked this up. I own it. I'm going to fix it. Those are the successful people. It's the ones that are like, oh, poor me. It wasn't my fault. It was the weather. I couldn't get out. Blah, 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 blah. My car broke down. That's all. And if you read books and you listen to audiobooks or whatever, successful people will talk about this. They don't maybe say it the way I said it. They'll say it a different way, but they talk about showing up and being responsible. And I think that's important.
And you put a good point of like taking ownership, right? With like Jocko Willings, like he made a good book about that. And I know John Sonmez, he put a quote out there saying like, stop having the victim mindset, right? Like, why me? Why does this happen to me? Right? It's just the world, right? Wherever your spot is at, you just take full ownership of it and you just do it.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And I know you do a lot of like masterminds, right? Do you have any advice in like starting a group in your local area, or like basically on making it seem like bigger than make it bigger as it is right now?
Give me, what do you mean?
So I've started a local meetup, right? Because because I don't see anybody doing it. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting enough people to come in here, like 20 people, right? Is there a way that you would increase it? Like, what do you do in your masterminds to make it better than like at the average mastermind, I guess? Like, what were the topics you would talk about?
Well, it's okay. That's a great question. First of all, it's you always want to be a giver, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in giving, like this meeting today, right? I give my time. I charge a lot for my time. When people ask me for my time, I give it because I think it's important to always give back. You always want to be interested, not interesting. And what I mean by that is when you start these masterminds, it's not about you and it's not about what you want. When you're starting a mastermind, you've got to find out, what do people want? I may go, hey man, this is a great mastermind. I'm going to talk about X, Y, Z. And they're going to go, that's not my problem. My problem is A, B, C. But if you don't ask the questions of what would you like out of a mastermind, what would you like out of speakers, what would you like to hear? You're being interesting. You're not being interested. The more you can make it about them, the more they're going to be interested because you're solving a challenge that they have. You can do it by sending out questionnaires. You can do it by sending stuff on social media. Let me ask you this. So the mastermind that you have, what is the age bracket?
Age bracket, it's actually anybody can come in. It is that usually they're mostly old people, I guess, because they have more experience in the business and like entrepreneurship, and they show up and it's like free breakfast, of course. And they just talk about what's happening in their local area.
Okay. Are these business people or what do they do for work?
Yeah, they do. They mostly all do real estate, and they just talk about real estate most of the time. And they do other business as well, like picking up government contracts and like making their own like tech business, I guess.
Okay. So what is their problem that your mastermind is solving?
Their problem is like information, right? And like connection, I guess, because they don't have enough like contractors that they don't meet up with, or they don't know why their Airbnb is like not getting filled up, right? And they say, oh, because in this area they're having this local problem, so this is why. So I guess mostly it's information and networking based.
Okay. So how often do you do the mastermind?
I do once a month.
Okay. And it's in person?
It's in person, yes.
Okay. Do people have the option to zoom in on it? On a Zoom?
No, they don't actually.
You may want to make it because people are busy, right?
Yeah.
What days do you do the mastermind?
It's the third Sunday of the month.
Third Sunday. Okay. You may want to find out from people, does that work? Maybe some days weekends are family time for people and they can't get away. They may rather do it Wednesday evening. Maybe that's better for them. Yeah. So I would do a poll. What's better? If we could do it on the weekend or weekday, you just ask people, ask them what kind of speakers they would like to have at the mastermind.
Gotcha.
Would they like to have business? So, when you have a business, and I don't care if it's real estate, I don't care if it's Doritos, it doesn't matter, Chevrolet. You've got 4 parts to a business, right? You've got marketing. Marketing makes the phone ring.
Mm-hmm.
Sales, they answer the phone and they close the client to become clients now. Operations processes the transaction and tries to get repeatable business to make the cash register ring over and over again by the same customer. And accounting pays them. So you've got marketing, got sales, you got operations, you have accounting. You may want to take speakers from each one of these sectors as whoever the expert is and say, hey, we'd like for you to come and talk about marketing to the mastermind. We'd like for you to come in. And then next month, hey, we'd like to come talk to about sales. We'd like to come to operations, accounting. So you bring in a CPA to talk about accounting numbers, bring in a salesperson to talk about, now you're giving them value to their business, because whether you have Airbnb or anything, it doesn't matter. You still need to understand how to generate sales and how to market to your target market.
Of course, I'll put that into my notes right now. And what is the most common question? I know you do a lot of coaching. You coach a lot of clients of yours. What is the most common question you get from all your clients?
Like, why the fuck did I do this? A lot of the questions are, the biggest challenge a lot of entrepreneurs, especially early entrepreneurs, have is that they basically left a job and dream and hope of something better. They wanted freedom. They wanted free time. They didn't want to be bogged down by a 9 to 5, and they wanted the freedom to do what they want. Or some young entrepreneurs think that they're just going to start off, they're going to bypass the whole quote unquote 9 to 5 world, and they're just going to start off on their own. But what they don't realize is they end up having a worse than job, because now they are tied to this job that they now have, because it's not a business, because you can't walk away from it. They're making a fraction of what they would make just as an employee. They don't know how to get out of the loop. They're stressed. They're under pressure. They're in debt. They don't know how to get the business to run without them. And I'm talking people that have millions of dollars in revenue. Some people have, I coach people that have, $20 million in revenue, and they're like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Like, I got to get out of this thing. It's driving me, it's killing me. And so it's like, if you just had a job, you wouldn't have all these problems. They're like, I know. I'm like, because you didn't create it correctly. You didn't build the right foundation. You didn't become a successful person first and say, what should I not be doing in this business? Ego and pride are the biggest success inhibitors out there. We think we're more important than we really are. The reality is we're not.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they, again, just because somebody's making 5-10 mil a year does not mean that they're happy. Doesn't mean they're successful. Doesn't mean they're fulfilling their life, because they're stuck, is what I found.
I like that. Chris here, he has a question. Go ahead, Chris.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for
Chris.
coming along. My question came as you were talking about people starting their foundation for a job, and like kids trying to like skip the whole 9 to 5. Right now, the goal I have in mind is to start sneaker reselling. I'm looking into cook groups and stuff like that, but I know that I need to build up capital to be able to invest in sneakers. That's why I'm working at Amazon right now. So like I'm a bit like confused on like my next steps, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Sure. You ever play sports, Chris?
Track.
Okay, track.
Country.
When you're in track, what's the goal of when you're in track?
Decrease your time.
Decrease your time, right? And is there a way that you can measure that?
Like with a time clock or
a time clock, right? You can measure with it. It's measurable, correct?
Yes.
And you don't just go out on Thursday at 10 a.m. and just start running. You go out and you've got to beat the time in your heat to actually accomplish the goal of winning your race, correct?
Yes.
And the way that you can measure that you won the race is time. That's the measurement for you, correct?
Yes.
So the first thing I would say is, when you said, tell me again what you said the goal of your business is.
Well, I just want to start sneaker reselling in general, like, because I'm going to college right now, so that'll be like a way to make some extra money on the side and be able to pay for tuition. But I've seen I know people that are able to make like 50K in like 3 months with this. So like I also have them as resources, but since I have you here, an experienced entrepreneur, I just wanted to get your thoughts.
So, okay, and I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm gonna give you some tough love here. Yeah. My question to you was not what you just answered. You just basically told me the same thing as going and running around a field for a while and thinking that you're in a track meet. My question is what's the goal of the business? So what I was asking is at what point are you, how much do you want to make? The goal is to make $50,000 a month. Okay. Now it's the stopwatch. Now we can measure it. And when is the race? Okay. The goal is to make $50,000 a month in 1 year. And I want to be working 5 hours a week. Now it's tangible. So now we know the goal of where we're going and the destination. So when you say like, I want to start getting into, that's not a goal. That's like saying, I think I'm going to run around the block for a little while and I'll just kind of see how it goes. So imagine when you get in your car, right? You get in your car and you're going to dinner and you're going to meet your friends, and your friends say, okay, hey, let's meet at this place at 8 p.m. The goal is to be there at 8 p.m. Okay. That's the destination. The way you're going to get there is you're going to use your car, and the roads are going to be how that happens. So the roads are the strategy and the tactic is the vehicle. Okay. So, at 8 p.m., you have to be there, which you may go, well, there's traffic and it's late and blah, blah, blah. It takes me 35 minutes. So I'm going to leave at 7:20 so that I can make sure I'm there by 8 o'clock. You back it out, right? You don't just sit there at 8 o'clock and go, fuck, I guess I better go. I hope you don't do that, but I'm assuming you don't. So at 8 o'clock is when you're going to dinner. That's the goal. You're backing it out. So when you start your business and you say, I want to make $50,000 a month in 1 year, working 5 hours a week, that's the goal. Now what we do is we start working it backwards. Okay, what do I have to do to make $50,000 a month? These are the steps that you have to take. So when you say, hey, Steve, I think I'm going to take a pottery class. I'm going to go, does that get you to your goal? And you go, no, then I'm going to say, don't do it. Every question that you ask yourself when it comes to a goal in your business, after you identify the goal, then you ask yourself, is this the right way to get there? So entrepreneurs, one of the biggest reasons entrepreneurs fail, they don't start with the end in mind. That's just like you getting in your car and just start driving around, right? You're just fucking driving. You don't even know where you're going. And you pull over and you're like, hey, Steve, can you give me directions? What's the first thing I'm going to ask you?
You try putting your phone.
Where are you going? Yeah, why don't you have Waze on, right? I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna go, where are you going? And if you're like, I don't know, I'm just driving around, I'm gonna go, well, then I can't help you because you don't know where you're going. How can I help you get there? So that's what happens a lot of times with entrepreneurs. They get on the road and they're just fucking driving. Now, the biggest challenge, and this is very important for you and for other people listening, is many people get on the road going the wrong way. So you may say, well, that's stupid. Who would go the wrong way? Well, many people are so busy and so focused running away from the life that they don't want. Guess what happens? They run right into that life that they were running away from. So they are running away. They don't want a 9 to 5. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be controlled. Guess what happens? They run right into that. They go right into that. So my going back to your question, Chris, what I would do seriously is I would really sit down and think to myself, okay, what does this business look like? How is it? How do I get there? Where am I going with it? Like really ask those questions. What is the date that I make? And again, we'll use the 50,000 because you mentioned that. Okay, what does it take to make 50,000, right? How do I get there? Now you start reverse engineering it. Spend more time on the pre-game instructions and construction of the funnel before you put water in it. So many times people just, I'll just fucking figure it out as I go. Water's pouring everywhere and you don't get any water in the bucket because it just poured everywhere on the side. That's how many people's businesses are because they didn't take time to build the perfect funnel. Look, getting business and doing all that, that's easy once you create the structure. Creating that structure and knowing where it's going to go and knowing how the hose is going to work and knowing the end destination of that hose and what time that hose is going to spit out water and you're going to be done. That's the most important thing. When you're running a race, do you have the envisionment of when it's going to be done, or are you just kind of running to run?
Yeah, across the finish line. That's where
you got to have a finish line in your business. Same thing, man.
Thank you.
Did that help, or did I?
No, yeah. That
you got to go back to the drawing board, Chris. You got to actually sit down and think about it and like write down, like you got to literally sit there and journal like what you want. I know, Steve, you do that. Like I saw one of your posts where you did like a 2 hour like journaling session where you're like sitting down and just writing whatever about like your goals. And
Yeah. Sometimes slowing down to speed up is very powerful. You know, we're such a fast-paced society now. We want it now. We want it this. That's what we want. And I understand, right? That's, you know, social media and all that stuff has evolved us into that. But actually taking a pen and a piece of paper, hopefully you guys have those still.
yeah,
Take a pen, take a piece of paper, and just start writing down. Like there's nothing wrong with slowing down, going into a place that's quiet, without your phone, without all your bullshit. Sit down and be like, okay, what do I actually want? What does it look like? And here's the thing. I'm going to give you guys another little tidbit. A lot of entrepreneurs and people that start a business, most people do this. And I'm assuming you guys as well, as you want freedom, right? You want to have that freedom. Is that a safe statement?
of course.
You don't
Yeah.
want the 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
So I respectfully disagree with that statement,
How come?
because you could right now sell all of your shit and go live in somewhere in Uruguay or the jungles of Brazil without any money and have all the freedom that you want. But what you won't like is the memories that it creates. Shit, you could sell all your stuff and go live on the beach or in a park, but you won't like the memories. So I would suggest that when you think of what you want, the freedom gives you the ability to buy the memories, because that's really what you're doing. Look, I sold my company for millions of dollars. And I thought in my mind, man, I got all the freedom I want. This is fucking awesome, right? Guess what happened on Monday?
What?
I had to take the trash out. Nothing fucking changed. It's like, yeah, you start, and I'm like, wait, I'm in this cool club now. Like I sold my business. And it's like, yeah, take the trash out, get your shit done. It's like, huh, okay. Like I'm not in this cool members only jacket, you know, gang, and everyone's patting me on. Nothing. So all of a sudden I realized that, like, okay, selling your business and having freedom, you know, yeah, you're cool for about 3 weeks. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is fucking boring. I got to do something. So I started coaching, started working with businesses. It's not the destination, it's the journey. So I tell people, you know, I think as people, as humans, we are on a journey, right? We're not going to a destination. The destination is 6 feet under. That's our destination,
Yeah.
right? That's where we're headed. It's the journey along the way. I equate us to sharks. Sharks don't swim somewhere and stop. They're constantly moving. If a shark stops swimming, it dies. That's the same with humans. If we stop doing, we die. We die inside. So enjoy the journey and embrace what you're doing. Don't be such in a rush that you're not enjoying track because you want to hurry up to go work for Amazon. Now, I am a very, very focused and I'm a very driven person. Anyone who follows me knows I get shit done, but I also try to enjoy the journey, and I make sure that I stop and I enjoy what I'm doing, because that's just as important.
Do you have any tip? Because I know a lot of people that argue about, they're like, Steve, I'm in a situation where I'm not enjoying the journey right now. My journey is to basically, like, you hear a lot from like a lot of tech guys, right? They want to become that entrepreneur by getting like working at computer science. They're like, Steve, I'm not enjoying it. How do I enjoy the process and the journey?
If you don't like something, with a flip of your fucking fingers, you can change it.
Yeah.
So again, that's below the line. That's blame. That's excuse. That's denial. If you don't like your situation, change it. It's very simple. You're having a bad day. Take 3 fucking deep breaths and change your day. Like everyone is so like, oh, I'm in a bad mood and this, you know what? Nobody gives a shit. Like this is the reality of life. You have a good day, you have a bad day. Nobody cares. And that, unfortunately, that's how it is. You still got to get up and get your stuff done. So my advice is, if you don't like what's going on, change it. If you're too fat, go work out. If you're too skinny, do something. If you're broke, get money, change it. And with again, like I said, every day you make a decision. No one is going to do it for you. You know, I talk to people all the time, like, well, I'm having this problem, that problem. I'm like, oh man, that sucks. But you know what? I don't really care. It doesn't change my life. I give them advice. they'll tell me all the reasons why they can't do it. I'm like, okay, well, I guess you can't. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not going to fucking force you to do this. Like, either you do or you don't. So I guess my thing is, if you don't like your life, if you don't like where things are going, make a decision and change it. That's what you do.
I like that. And do you have any like any fair productivity hack for entrepreneurs? I know a lot of people that say like Google Calendar or having their own like SCRM.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in living by my calendar. I live on my go. Now I've got an assistant, as you know, scheduling me and all that. So she protects my calendar. And I'm a big believer in technology of using tools. Me traveling around the world, obviously I need a lot of, Google Docs and Evernote and stuff like that. But I believe that repetition, right? Making habits create patterns. Patterns create who you are. So you've got to start every day. Every day I start the same way. I write my I am statements every morning. I read 10 minutes. I write out what my 90-day goals are. I write out what is one thing that I'm going to do to accomplish my 90-day goal. And then I write my schedule for the day. That's what I do every day.
I love that. And that's like what it's like right after you wake up.
Yep. Right when I wake up before I go to the gym. So it takes me about 45 minutes to do all the shit I need to do in the morning. My wife makes fun of me because she's up and gone like in 10 minutes. But that's what I do. And it sets my day, right? Because once I get home from the gym, my phone's already going, shit's going on. I don't have time. So I do it when it's quiet. I do it at 4 o'clock. I'm done by 4:45 or 5 o'clock. And then I head to the gym.
And do you have any cues that shows you that you're actually progressing in the right direction?
Not really. I mean, I think of three things, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's health, there's wealth, and there's relationships. Okay. So my 90-day goals are based around those three things. So wealth, that's a number in the bank or whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish that quarter, right? If I want to make a certain amount of revenue or I'm trying to get something going or get on a certain stage, that's pretty measurable, right? Mm-hmm. Health, that's pretty measurable because I could say like, okay, for me, maybe I want to weigh a certain amount, I have a certain amount of body fat or something along those lines. That's easy too. And then relationship, that's a relationship either with your family, your spouse, or even yourself. And that's a way that you can measure it. So you've got to make it a tangible thing, right? And so that's the way that you're able to actually be more successful by doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like that. And are you running late, Steve?
No.
Okay. I'm just wondering
we're good till 12 or till, yep. I got another 5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right. Because I have a crap ton of questions, but we're gonna do the what do you call it? The ending questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. You actually you're changing my mindset right now. Like how I'm approaching things. Like right now for real estate, I'm like, okay, what is my goals? I reach my goals and I'm like, oh crap. Okay. I need to make bigger goals, right? I need to make them 10X. And now it's like, okay, how can I basically, because I'm doing things, like you said, I'm doing things that are not going towards my goal, right? I'm like, oh, I don't really enjoy this, right? It doesn't work for me. And I could probably have someone else do this for me or, like basically find the who's. I like that.
Yeah. If your goals don't make you nervous saying them out loud, they're not big enough.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I'm just trying to find, yep, right here. Okay. So if you can go back in time, right? The old saying, what would you tell your younger self? Your 18-year-old self?
Go bigger, faster.
Go big and go faster?
Go bigger, faster.
Go bigger, faster.
I would have gone bigger, faster. I wouldn't have let my self-doubt and fear stop me because, it's all made up in our head. The fear that we have is just made up in our minds.
Gotcha. Were you scared at all going through, did you have a fear of going to like pilot school and all that?
I mean, there's always fear, fear of failing, your check ride, fear of, there's always fear. I mean, I do masterminds now. I pay speakers $25,000 to show up. I got, I got to make sure that these masterminds I got to get butts and seats. So, I mean, look, if I'm not stepping up into an uncomfortable zone, I'm not growing. If I'm not growing, I'm dying.
Yeah. I like that. And if you could tell your future self something, or would you like to ask your future self, what would it be?
If I want to ask my future self something, that's a good question. I'd like to make sure that the person I am is the person I said I was going to be in the future. Did I become that person?
Mhm. And what is that person that you are, or that you want to be?
You know, I want to be someone who is known for helping people, that gives back, that makes sure that relationships trump financial positioning.
Okay. I like that. And is there a quote that you live by every day or that comes to your head?
Nobody cares, just do it anyways.
I love that. And okay, now you're a big book reader, I'm guessing. And what are some books that you would recommend for a certain situation or parts of life, whether it's wealth, relationship, or anything?
10X by Grant Cardone,
Mhm.
The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, The One Thing by Gary Keller, Eat the Frog by Brian Tracy. Those were
Like
all
that.
pretty instrumental books in my life that you know, I go back and reread. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Those are ones that I would suggest.
Okay. I love that. And do you have any like a book that nobody is like underground, nobody ever heard of this at all?
Nowadays, probably not.
Yeah, it's like those old books.
Maybe my book that I wrote, no one's ever heard of. But other than
Yeah.
that,
Oh, speaking of your book, oh, do you want to like, endorse it right here? Like, what's it about?
yeah. I mean, my book is basically my story. It's
Yeah.
failing our way to millions, building an empire. It's all the bullshit that I went through more in detail, and how we kind of came out the other side. It's a good book. It's kind of comical. Most people are like, I cannot believe you went through all that and still are standing. But you know, that's the life of an entrepreneur. I mean, this was a no punch. I talk about 9/11. I talk about growing up as a kid in East LA and all of my life and everything that happened. And you know, I didn't have this big traumatic drama life, but it wasn't an easy life. And you know, I had to learn how to overcome a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's the failures that build you. And is there anything that you would like to tell your mother or father?
I'd like to hope that they're proud of me. My mom's still alive. My dad's not anymore. And I'd like to think that they're proud of what they've done because I'm a byproduct of them.
Nice. I respect that. And finally, is there any way that people can reach out to you? Like, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, they can find me on all the social media, Instagram, Rozenberg Steve, Facebook. I have a website, steverozenberg.com. I have a bi-weekly mastermind that I do. Somebody wants to come, I'll give them a free trial. They can try it out, check it out, see if they like it. It's for entrepreneurs and we talk about business and how to get your shit together. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff. If somebody and so people know, if somebody reaches out to me, I am the one who answers back. So I do answer back people. I get a lot of people that reach out and I always answer them back to make sure I think it's respectful. That if you took the time to ask me, I'm going to answer you back.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I could 100% agree with that. And Steve, thank you for coming on board. And we loved having you as a guest. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.